So, welcome to Raisable Sessions. I'm Vasyl Dab, founder of Raisable Founders Hub. And at Raisable, our mission is very simple. We help ambitious founders to integrate into Silicon Valley, prepare for fundraising, refine go-to-market strategies, and most importantly, build the right network of founders, VCs, tech leaders, operators, accelerators, everyone who help global founders succeed. And it's very important because when I first came to Silicon Valley, I didn't know anyone, and it was very hard. I was super confident, but my confidence was crashed really fast because I felt I spoke the different language and I couldn't make people interested. So, and that's why we created Raisable, because so many of us are outside of the Valley, and we have a lot of talent, a lot of great ideas, but we lack the way how to do it in the right way. Just a second, I'll let in other people join. So a few updates. Last month was quite busy because I want to tell you a bit of context of what else we do rather than Raisable Sessions. So we organized a few events here, local events in the Valley. We hosted a closed hike and dinner with mostly Series A+ founders, VCs, and tech leaders. We had guys from OpenAI, from xAI, LinkedIn Korea team, and it was a great Friday. After that, we also, before the Tech Crunch, we hosted a few events. The one for the Ukrainian tech community with around 100 participants. Another one Sacha hosted for the French entrepreneurs here in the Valley. We both I have Ukrainian roots, Sacha have French roots, so that's why these communities we support mostly, but not only, of course. We welcome a few new partners. So we partnered with Publicize, a top PR agency, and some of you who know me better or who subscribe to my social media, you may saw my Crunchbase news article. That's because we have these great guys. They work with the tech community pretty much. And we have a new partners, a PhD-powered AI R&D lab with 10 researchers on board. Very strong and powerful cases in computer vision, audio, conversational AI, manufacturing, logistics, health tech. And one more important thing is I signed with Network VC as a venture partner. So we invest in Series A or Seed plus companies with $1 million ARR, or if you have a lead investor, that you should definitely reach out, and we will be happy to dive deeper into what you built and see if we can support you with funding at this stage. And what's coming next? So we are launching a new program in January. It's a next Raisable Mastermind track. It's a 10-week program for founders who are serious about entering and scaling the US market, if you're already here, and those who are committed to fundraising. So it's not a course, it's more like a transformational track. Very small groups, weekly meetings, direct feedback from VCs, those who actively invest right now, and founders who have raised and build this mindset of Silicon Valley. Because the main problem is that most VCs will not give you feedback. It's not their business model to give you feedback. They just will say you, good luck, great project, move forward. But what you really need to hear is like, hey, how would I need to see my business and pitch my business to you that you will be interested to invest? So that's what we actually do and help build network through this mastermind course. And later in April, we will be hosting another bootcamp. It's in-person weekly program here in Silicon Valley, where we actually will meet these people who we met during mastermind course and others, VCs, founders. We will here who are based in the Valley. We will meet with accelerators, big tech guys, etc., etc. So that will be coming in April. And I highly suggest you to subscribe to our Substack, because all the news and more details on everything I just mentioned, we will be posting there. Sacha, can you please send the link to the chat? And So let me see if I said everything. Yeah, and so I'm super happy to introduce today's moderator, Sacha Ledan, my co-founder at Raisable Founders Hub. Before Raisable, Sacha spent several years at Stanford GSB, and where he launched and led programs that supported over 400 founders and 250 companies. He was partnered directly with top-tier VCs like Accel, Sequoia, Index, Lightspeed. And before Stanford, he was at StartX, and also Stanford-related accelerator for the Stanford alumni, helping build the infrastructure that connects founders with the resources they need to scale. So Sacha brings really great and unique perspective to this conversation. He's seen that works and what doesn't for global founders trying to break into the US market, and he's dedicated making that path clear for all of you and us. And Sacha, I will pass the mic over to you, and please introduce our today's guest.
Thank you, Vasil. Very excited to be here with Antonio today. Thanks everyone for joining. So Antonio is an amazing entrepreneur who came here originally from Sao Paulo in Brazil. Came to go to the GSB, navigated visas, now has built a company where he's raised over $55 million. He became EY Entrepreneur of the Year for the Bay Area in 2025. And he's walked the path many international immigrant founders tried to go for. So today, Antonio is the co-founder and CEO of XP Health. And they are building the first all-in-one vision health platform. They have over 6,000 corporate clients and 600,000 members today. Before that, in Brazil, Antonio co-founded Vox Capital, which was an impact fund. It became a Harvard Business School case study as well. He co-produced a documentary called The New Capitalism on Netflix. And then he came to the US to get a master's degree from Stanford and then launched XP Health after graduating. Antonio, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
So kind of starting at the beginning of your venture or of your adventure coming to the US, what first inspired you to leave Brazil and come to the Bay Area?
Great. Super excited to be here. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the invite, Sacha and Vasil. So I think what really inspired me, I was running my own venture capital firm that I started when I was 20. I was running for almost 10 years. When I was about 20, I set myself this kind of crazy goal that I decided that I wanted to find a way to impact 1 million people. And I gave myself 10 years to do that. So that's why I started the venture capital firm focused on impact investing. And I kind of accomplished that. Like no one really believed that that was possible, but two of the companies that I invested surpassed that goal. So then I started to think, well, what is next? And the initial idea was to come, I applied to Stanford, I got lucky and got in. I thought I would stay here for 1 year and then come back to Brazil, continue running the fund, or like create a even bigger fund, like Fund 3. But after 3 months here in Silicon Valley, I was totally inspired by, the moonshot thinking and like how things can like really create a massive impact. So then I set myself this new crazy goal that is, well, let me try to find a way to impact 1 billion people. 1 billion people, right? Because the cost of dreaming big and small is the same. So might as well, right, shoot for something really, really big. And the same way that people didn't believe I was able to impact 1 million people, I said, well, no one will believe me, and that's fine. I don't care. I'll just try to do it. And of course, we're 0.0001% of that goal. But that's what drives me to be here and not be in Brazil with my family and not around, all the good stuff that I would have there in Brazil. Of course, it was a much harder life to be here, but for sure the best path.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think that mindset shift occurs a lot when you come here from, that scale from 1 million to 1 billion. Like I think a lot of people think and dream so huge here, and it can't help but infect you or influence you. So you mentioned, the first thing you did when you came here was coming to Stanford. Obviously, it's an incredible place to study and be inspired. Can you tell us a bit more about how Stanford impacted your journey as an entrepreneur and kind of launched you down that path?
It was super fundamental for us. I think it's much harder if you don't have like an initial group. That's what you guys are doing with Raisable, right? In my case, Stanford was this initial pool of people that helped me get started, right? So I think the most important thing was we took this entrepreneurship class. Me and my co-founder James, he's a machine learning engineer. He was at Facebook, Airbnb. Like, I'm the business guy, and he's like the super genius. And then we applied to this entrepreneurship class called Lean Launchpad, which is one of the hardest. And we pivoted 4 times throughout the 10 weeks, and we had to interview 120 customers, potential customers, right? And that was really the strong foundation for us to start thinking what the company would be. Also, I think the other thing that Stanford was super important, that professor from that class became our very first angel. Most of the money we raised from people that I knew before, from my time in Brazil, some American investors, but because of what I was doing in Brazil. So I would say kind of like fundraising lesson number 1 for me was, in the very early stages, you're relying on your existing networks. But the fact that a professor invested in us, like a small amount, but it gave me the confidence, like, oh, and he's like a big shot, right? Like in Silicon Valley, I felt, we're onto something here, right? So that was very important, right? And he introduced to other investors, like in terms of the amount of money was not that relevant, but it was, again, more the confidence, right? That we could do something.
I think the networks and having Stanford or Raisable, or it could be an accelerator or other networks that kind of plug you into the right people and the right like investors is huge in the beginning, especially when you start from nothing. So I do want to dig a bit more in the networks, but first, you mentioned you pivoted 4 times before even coming out of the Stanford Accelerator or Venture Studio. Can you kind of talk about the pivots and how you ended up landing on what XP Health is now and doubling down on that?
Yes. So we started, the first idea was a medical device to screen cataracts, the eye disease, using machine learning. Super cool technology. I was working for 9 months at Stanford before that entrepreneurship class on that idea. And we got like grants, 2 grants from Stanford, like an award. The team was insane, like impressive team. When we applied to that class, you were really forced to go out to the world and test the idea. And then in 2 weeks, we learned that the idea sucked. It was like terrible. No one wanted to buy it, even for free. We said, do we want to use this for free? We'll find a way to monetize. No one cared about that. But then we started to like understand, wow, but vision insurance is a big scam in the US. Well, like because of 1,000% markups. And the experience is super outdated, right? Going to the optometrist, buying glasses, you're being, upsold. And so we started to go into that direction. And then after we launched the company, actually the first business model was also completely disrupted by the pandemic. So we had to pivot again. But the great thing is like we learned how to pivot and test hypotheses and just like listen to customers. That was the biggest learning. So that was super fundamental. So I highly, highly recommend for the folks here that are still in the early stages or planning to start a company, start with traction, get 100 people to interview. That's it. Like we had to do that in 10 weeks in the class. And we didn't have connections. It was like our friends, etc. But it forces you to be like hit on the face multiple times. And then you're learning, okay, the idea is not good.
Right. Yeah, don't worry about the awards or other recognition, right? Worry about the clients and the people who actually feel the pain and will pay for your solution and talk to them. Yeah,
exactly. Awards are worth nothing. Even like, Stanford gave us like, oh, that's great. Just for our egos. nothing else.
Yeah, don't worry too much about your ego, especially in the beginning, I guess.
Oh yeah.
So kind of going back to the, the investor networks, and you mentioned having that first investment from Stanford professor was pivotal to really get you going, give you confidence, and get you other VC introductions. For people that don't have that necessarily that Stanford connection, or just are coming here, how do you suggest, or what advice you have for building relationships with VCs and kind of creating your own network?
I think it's just like hustling. I heard this talk from a super successful entrepreneur. His first round, he spoke with 150 something investors. He just needed one yes to start. So that's how he started. He sold for, I don't know, $2-3 billion his company to SAP. But even like the best of us will just be like grinding. So I think for me, one what has helped in the early days, LinkedIn. It's a better way to introduce yourself for cold outreach. A lot of what we built in the connections were because of this one person who replied and then introduced me to this other person who then introduces then a snowball effect.
So you still feel, we hear a lot about cold outreach as being a very ineffective kind of strategy, but you still feel like that's something you can do. I mean, obviously if you could get warm intros, but you could still do both.
Yes, especially you need to do everything. Warm intros are much better. I'm assuming like someone that has no connections, then it's like cold outreach. But then you find something that you have in common with that person, right? Something that creates a better connection, right?
Yeah. So now you've been through a few rounds. You've raised $55 million. You recently, or last year, had your Series B. Can you kind of retrospectively think about from seed, Series A, Series B, the difference for each stage and how founders can know they're ready for each of these rounds?
That's a great question. For us, it was like a while ago, a few years, so those things might change, but it only gets harder, right? Meaning like, yes, you can raise more money than 10 years ago, but the milestones are higher as well. So in our case, in the seed round, we had to show traction already. I would say don't come with an idea. Ideas are free. Everyone has an idea, right? Or just a prototype. So I would say you need to have traction and ideally revenues, even to raise the pre-seed. Because VCs are always skeptical and they don't know if the idea will work or not. So one, in this pre-seed seed round, they're investing in you. That's number one. So you might be much better off relying on existing connections like your previous work, your previous boss and the executives of the company, and you don't need a lot of money to make it work, right? For example, in my case, the very first VC who invested, it was a guy who I met 10 years before in a conference, and then it was before I started my venture capital firm. And he remembered me saying, I want to impact 1 million people and like I'll raise a VC fund. Probably he said, this guy is crazy. He'll never do it, especially like impact investing in Brazil. And then 10 years after we reconnected, he said, oh, you did what you said you were going to do, right? So that's the point. It's someone that already knows you, that has seen what you've done before. Those will be the first layer of people that you can raise money from. So that's kind of pre-seed seed. Series A for us, that was maybe 5 years ago when we raised Series A. We had to have $1 to $3 million in recurring revenues. That was the case, and it was a huge struggle for us. Every single round has been a huge struggle until Series B. Series B was the only one which was really fast, and only because I think the threshold was between 8 and 12 million. We were at that threshold in recurring revenues, but the story was that we had grown 10 times in 2 years. So it was the first time that I could show like, explosive growth, and then the investors were fast, right? The only time that I got 2 term sheets and then it was like a complete process. Every single time I thought it would take 3 to 4 months, and it took like 6 to 12 months. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think thanks. That's a lot of great insights there. I think, first of all, it always takes longer than you expect, I think, for everyone. Second of all, we see this more and more, the need for early traction, early numbers, even at a pre-seed seed level now. It can't just be an idea and a dream. It has to be like something that's a little more concrete, at least few hundred conversations, if not like commitments. So it is tough. I mean, even in AI, things are getting tougher, right? Like the VCs are getting more and more metric centric. But you made it through every round. Congrats, and I'm sure you'll keep raising more. Do you have advice? It's been a bit of a tough fundraising climate, I think, especially for non-AI companies such as yourself. Do you have any advice for founders when it's a difficult fundraising environment? What they can do? Obviously, showing progress. And I think one thing you mentioned also, I'll just quickly before you answer, creating relationships long before you actually fundraise is incredibly valuable, right? Like knowing a VC for months, years, talking to them about your company and showing progress before you even ask them for money, I think is very powerful as well. But yeah, any advice you have?
Is the classic thing, they want to see a movie and not just like a picture. I would say if you're already a successful founder and for Silicon Valley standards, it's like you sold already a company for a meaningful amount, which was not my case. I created like a couple of companies before, Harvard business case study, like for the fund, but I didn't sell it and made a ton of money. Sold the movie to Netflix with my production company, but also like not something that I could speak. So I was like a regular guy, just to put that out. So I think if you're a successful entrepreneur, you can have the strategy, I'll just engage with the market, I'll run a process, and in 2 weeks I'm gonna get it done. And I would say, like, many times I heard founders saying, oh yeah, no, it took me like 2 weeks to raise. If you're not like the sexiest AI company or a successful founder before with a good exit, like you're just a regular guy like me, and then it's gonna take time. So some pieces of advice I would say that I heard and I applied, it worked for me as well. One, this is the most basic, I think, is the very well known. If you ask for advice, you leave with money. If you ask for money, you leave with advice, right? So engage early on, really get advice on the product that you're building. One thing that is so recurring in my experience, every time that we were, let's say, pre-seed, the goal was 300,000. That was the goal that we set ourselves. It was a massive struggle to raise until we got to that threshold. The moment that we got to 300,000, my body language, my narrative all changed, because it's not we're raising and this is the goal. It changed to, oh, we achieve our goal and we're still talking to investors, but only the ones that we like, that we might want to bring in or not. So you change. And then what happened, like, so much easier. Everyone wanted to invest after I got to the goal. And that happened in the pre-seed, in the seed, in the pre-series A, the series A, like every time. So my advice is, like, set a goal that is very, very small, and then when you accumulate enough verbal commitments, then you change the pitch, right? And then what happened, we ended up raising 1 million in the pre-seed, because it was easier after we got to the 300,000. The seed round, we set the goal of raising 1, and massive struggle after we got to the 1, then we ended up raising 4 million relatively fast after.
Okay. Yeah.
The other advice, I think I took my notes here, like 4 little pieces of the advice I wanted to share. The third one is, this is a brilliant question that I heard from a founder. You ask the VC, what is your minimum check? You don't ask, like, what's the average check, what's the maximum check, because you're signaling that, hey, you will get oversubscribed, and then they never tell you what is the minimum check. They always will say like what is the sweet spot for them. But then they already like, first, it's not a question that anyone asks. And especially if you hit the, let's say the 300,000 goal, and then you're asking, oh, what is your minimum? Then you're just validating that it's true. That it's not just like BS. And then they get super like with massive FOMO. And I've done that multiple times. And then, one that wanted to invest 100,000 as the minimum was 100,000. I let them invest 800,000 over a few rounds of negotiation. Like they wanted to put more money, I wanted them to put less money, but a little bit of theatrics because I needed the money. And the last piece of advice that I received that was the best, always raise more than you think you need, because we would have gone bankrupt probably like 3 or 4 times if we hadn't raised more than we thought. Because we, at some point, like Series A, we rejected the first term sheet, which was probably like the biggest learning that I had. I think, you should have a really good reason to reject the term sheet. I thought we would get a better valuation. And that's why I said, no, like this is crap. Like this is like a horrible valuation. After 6 months, with everyone telling us no, then I got another 2 term sheets that were split because the checks were pretty small and the valuation was the same as I had gotten before. So I just like wasted a ton of money, and we basically ran out of money. We had 2 weeks of cash in the bank, so like we were paying payroll, and I had to be raising like very tiny checks on safes just to keep the lights on for 6 months. We were like 6 months with 2 to 4 weeks of cash in the bank.
Yeah, amazing. Well, you made it. Great pieces of advice. I think that's super helpful. Another one I heard is that if you're going to need to fundraise in the future, in the next year or 2, just take the money now if you can. You never know what's going to happen, right? So, you went through the pandemic with your company, like things that are unforeseen will happen and you'll have a higher burn than you expect. So I want to focus more now and switch to your kind of go-to-market and sales. I was hoping maybe you can give us a quick overview of what your go-to-market and revenue model looks like, since XP Health is a bit complicated and with different stakeholders and payers and users. So could you walk us briefly through how that looks like for you?
Perfect. I think the simple thing is we're a B2B company. We sell vision benefits to large employers. So not so much as Warby Parker or any online e-commerce stores. It's more competing against the traditional vision insurance, which here in the US is a big market. In my country and many other countries, vision insurance does not exist. That's why it's complicated for people to understand. But think that there's the health plan, the dental plan, the dental insurance, and here in the US there's this market of vision insurance, which has like negative NPS and super abusive markups, like 1,000%. So we're basically reinventing that space. Right?
Great. And you sell to corporate clients, even though you service their employees. So you now have 6,000, I think was the latest update, or more than 6,000 clients. But obviously in the beginning that wasn't the case. So can you kind of look back on how you got your first like 10 to 50 clients and how you convinced them, these are big companies, how you convinced them to work with a startup with a new solution that's unproven?
Great. So I think all founder led. It was going after chasing the potential clients. The first 2 clients were Chegg, which is it's a public company in the tech space for education, and DocuSign, electronic signature. So DocuSign was through an advisor. So advisors were always great for us. And then Chegg, it was in one of those trade shows, right? Like in a conference in the HR space, which is our space. Um, yeah, so I think like very first, all the clients were us, me and my co-founder going after clients, and then after we started to have those logos like DocuSign, check, they were good logos. Then we hired a first sales rep, didn't work at all. Then the second was a better hire, and then we started to build a little bit of an engine. And now still a small sales team, but like 10 people, right? And a lot of the growth came from distribution partnerships as well. One of, I think, piece of advice that worked well for us was raising money from people who really understand your space. One, because I lost a lot of calories talking with like 100 VCs that didn't understand healthcare, didn't understand insurance, didn't understand anything that we did. It was just like a total waste of time. And then the ones who ended up investing, they never helped with anything. But the ones who really understood our industry, they made some connections that helped with some distribution partnerships that became, 40% of our revenues right now, right? And it's like very few investors that will help that much, but I think it's important to be focused there on the fundraising.
Yeah, I think it's not even just the VC, but the partner within the VC that has to be the one who understands your space and can help you with connections. And I think that's true for your clients as well, right? Like know who you're targeting and which companies and who within that company you should be pitching and talking to. And it sounds like you actually had a very diverse set of different strategies. You had those channel partnerships. You had from a vendor booth at a fair, an intro from. So you kind of diversified your potential clients and prospecting channels. How did that change or evolve when you went to 100 clients to 1,000 clients? Like what do you focus on now that you're 6,000 clients as well? What's your go-to-market today?
I think it's constantly evolving. We went from selling purely direct, right, to employers, to when we launched this partnership with this big distribution channel, we doubled down on the channel side, and then nothing else was working because one, it takes a lot of time, like 2 to 3 years to sell to channels in our space. It's a huge, like super long sales cycle, and out of 10 distribution partnerships that we launched, only 1 or 2 would work. The rest were like 0 revenues. So then in the last 2 years, we reshifted back again to 80% focus on direct and then 20% focus on channels, but then like very intentional about channels. Like, reducing a lot of the noise of, so anyway, I think the point that is maybe interesting for everyone is you need to keep constantly iterating and learning and never stop listening to the customers and what they want, and building, continue to build a product that makes sense to them and not just because you think it's a good idea, right?
Yeah. Always listen to the clients, right? And keep, even as you're separating as a founder, getting further from the sales, try to keep in touch with the pulse of the clients. So, one thing that I've heard is quite hard from a lot of founders is kind of transitioning from that early founder-led sales to building a team and kind of delegating that. So how did you do that transition from not being as involved in sales for you and your co-founder and hiring people?
I think it's like you're bumping your head against the wall like 100 times till you find, okay, this is something that works. Like a lot of bad hires, especially in sales, where it's really hard. There's a product market fit, there's a seller product fit as well. Not everyone will be able to sell your solution. If you're selling to SMBs, like small companies, very different than large. It's very different to like the channel. So it's a lot of experimentation, and we still don't know. We're still like trying to figure out. I think the strategy from last year was like horrible. We're changing like a lot of things for next year. So I don't think there's a silver bullet, but it's just persistence, right? Like, and you never hear anyone that regretted firing someone too soon, you always regret firing too slowly, right?
Yeah,
That's,
you hear that a lot. So, I mean, do you have any strategies or advice? Like, I think sales hires are maybe the hardest hires in a company. Like, do you have any advice on how to do it? Is it just iterating quickly and hiring and firing quickly, or is there a way to find the right people effectively?
I think it's both, like hiring slowly and firing quickly, but also going through references, like through referrals, right? I think the best people, that everyone that was exceptional, that is or was exceptional, came from someone that knew them and said, this is the best sales rep that I work with, like an advisor for us that knows that person, right? Because then the advisor will be selling your company as well to that person, because sometimes it's really hard to get the best people, right? The advisors, again, they work really well for us getting great people.
Great. Yeah. Choose your advisors wisely. And that's, something I heard echoed by some amazing founders when I was at Stanford, by Tony Zhu of DoorDash, Scott Brady, was that the most important part of any hire is really the reference checks, and that they do that more than anything. The Diane Green of VMware, she's the co-founder there. She had a great story about how Elon Musk once called her for a reference check and was very rude to her. And then she said, I'm never talking to you again. And then he apologized and he did another reference check later. So she did talk to him, but those are the most valuable conversations for hires. And not just the first 3 questions, because people will tell you they're great, yeah, no problem. But you keep going deeper and having a script that you question a lot. And after a while, when they run out of the pre-canned response, you'll get to the true reference and what they truly think of the person.
100%.
Thanks for sharing all that on your kind of growth and revenue and go to market. Quite complicated questions. Before opening up a bit to questions from everyone else, I have a couple final questions on a more maybe personal level. So as an immigrant founder, you also had to kind of navigate immigration processes and figure out how to stay here beyond your schooling and as an entrepreneur. What kind of advice do you have for people that are going through this? How did you figure out how to stay here permanently? How complicated was that?
So because I was doing, I did two masters at Stanford. In my second year, then I applied to the OPT, which is the 1 year. Back then, it was only 1 year, the extension that I could do. So you can work anywhere. And at least back then, I was able to work on my own startup under the OPT. So that was the first year. In the middle of this first year with the OPT, then I applied to the O1. At least the understanding from the attorneys that I talked back then, it was the only option for me as an entrepreneur. I'm not sure if now there's the entrepreneurship visa. I'm not following that much. And I've been renewing the O1, and now I'm going to move to the EB2, which leads to the green card. I've been just postponing the green card because my family has a family business in Brazil, and then the lawyers from the family business said, if you can avoid the green card, you're going to pay less tax. Anyway, but now is the time, because I'm not going back to Brazil anyway. So that's kind of the plan now.
Great. Well, I hope you get a green card. I hope this country is definitely better with you here. So final question before we open up to everyone. From your whole journey, from starting, pivoting, raising, building a great company, what are some top mistakes that you can kind of share that other international founders can avoid?
Great question. It's like so many. I think when we touch upon bad hires, like fire fast, as I mentioned, getting the right advisors, we talk about that. On the fundraising, I think the first big mistake was at some point not running a whole process with 100 VCs. we zoomed on one that was super engaged, and I was feeling great about them. And then eventually they gave us a term sheet, and that's the one that I got greedy. Second big mistake. And because I was inviting them even to join the sales meeting so they could understand the pipeline. But the problem is that they felt it was a very monogamous relationship, and they were the exclusive ones. So then they sent the term sheet, and I felt, but I haven't run a process. Let me do it. And then I rejected the term sheet. And as I mentioned, it took me 6 months to get another one, and it was the same valuation, right? But it always started like I didn't run like a proper process, right? I think the other mistake that I didn't share here yet is I got this advice from a VC. With the best fundraiser that I've met, this founder is incredible. He came to us and he said, everyone has 2 weeks to place their term sheets. Otherwise, we won't accept. I said, okay, like a good advice. And then I said I said like 3 weeks because I felt less confident. Of course, after 3 weeks, 0 term sheets. And like I had to go back on my word that like we're gonna run this process in 3 weeks. And then it took me like 6 months. So again, I think if you haven't sold a business before, like don't create those.
Yeah, don't back yourself into a corner.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And I think just on the personal side, as immigrants that we're here, like I'm not a like native speaker. I think one of the biggest learnings is not believing myself enough. Like you hire this great executive, a billion years in experience, and he's gonna or he or she, we're gonna run this, like they know what they're doing. That's why I hired them. And then after 1 year or 2 years or more, like, no, it's not working. And I had the intuition because I'm thinking about this 100% of the time, like it's 24 hours per day, and then eventually you need to part ways, and then you decide to do the things that you thought were the right ones, and then eventually they work. Because again, you're just obsessed about the business, right? No one is as obsessed as you are. So I think these are the.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing. It's from a lot of cultures to feel less confident. Obviously, imposter syndrome, feeling less confident as a founder, but I think also being less projecting confidence, and that's a very American thing, or Silicon Valley, to like, you say you're going to reach 1 billion users or 1 billion valuation, like dream bigger and kind of communicate that, and that's not natural for a lot of immigrants. Antonio, thank you so much. Had a great talk. I hope everyone here learned a lot, and want to kind of open it up to anyone who may have some more questions they want to ask you. So you can just, unmute yourself or tap it in the chat, whatever.
It's better to raise your hand in the chat.
Or raise your hand. Yeah.
Okay, Svetlana is the first.
Yeah, I just want to say hi and to endorse Antonio. Actually, he's not just a simple guy. Like, he was always a superstar at our class at GSB. And he was always like, on the top.
Not at all. You're good to see you.
You are, come on. Matthew Bannick was really like, loving you. And that's like, so I'm just really very, very impressed with what you have done. And I just would like to say that actually the way of Antonio is like, the model if you want to really get to great results. Because, well, even for for all these Stanford's guy who kind of not average, the transition from what he was doing to all these health, public policy studies and everything, everybody was like, very surprised and very curious what you are going to do. And what you have done is really very, very impressive. And I'm really happy to see you here, at meeting with mainly Ukrainian founders. And I'm really happy for your path. That's like, you did just stunning job.
Thank you so much, Svetlana. Really matters a lot to me. And good to see you. Let's grab coffee when you have time.
Yeah, let's go for coffee.
Yeah, great. And great to have this advantage to have a possibility to meet in person and be in Silicon Valley. Okay, Antonio, please.
Yeah. Hi, Antonio. Thank you so much for this event. Yeah, it was amazing to hear you and listen to you, and so get such experience. So, and I wanted to ask you. So to build a successful company, how much should founders spend on a company development as a sales, like a marketing, and how much on operations, like everyday activity, So
That's a really great question. I think it really depends if you have a co-founder, like what's your like core skills, where's your superpower. So I always split. We have a ton of operations. That's my co-founder. He's leading in the early days, leading operations, and then obviously engineering, product design. And then I was leading the sales and marketing, like fundraising, right? So I think it really depends. If you're a solo founder, then obviously it's harder, right? You need to play all the different hats. I think the best thing is to find people that are super complementary to you, which was one of my mistakes in my previous business. Was I had a group of people that we were all very similar, so we were all redundant to each other. Like if you have a bunch of co-founders and you all have the same superpowers, it's not very optimized, and it can lead to like a lot of egos, right? I think one of the best things that I learned is to really work with people who have very low egos. And yeah, I think egos are like the doom of humanity. It's like yeah, I can talk more about that, but
I would maybe add also more specific question. And how do you, or how have you been dividing your time between sales to customers and sales to VCs? Because both are recognized as a sales.
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, what works for me, I need to be single-threaded focus when I'm fundraising. When I'm not, then I'm like playing all the different hats, right? Even on the product side as well, that I mentioned is my co-founder, but like I have sometimes like strong opinions about the product, of course. But fundraising for me, when I try to just continue running things as usual, and fundraising just takes so much longer. The context switching is horrible. So for me, I benefited from like, okay, I'll just immerse myself, just forget about me. I canceled a bunch of one-on-ones. I kept it only with the leadership team, the core ones, and then the core leadership meetings. And I'm just single-threaded. At least to me, that has worked better.
Was it the same early days when you were like raising your first round and like first customers getting, very often you can hear the advice also from VCs, like don't talk to VCs, go talk to your customers. And then when you have first customers, come and talk to VCs. Have you been splitting that as well? Was it difficult to switch the context as well, or how was it on you?
Yes, I think what I've always done was not spending time like grabbing coffee with VCs just to catch up. Was like always very focused when I started to raise. So I think I would do it because it goes against the advice of like meeting VC so they can see the movie, not just the picture. So I would recommend like being very selective. Maybe you'll find like the core 20 that really understand your industry, the ones who you want to get advice just because they are experts. So like it's gonna benefit the product and they go to market because they have expertise on that. So then I would use my time to really get advice and building those relationships instead of having a list of 50 and then spending time grabbing coffee with all of them. Just just for the sake of it, right? And then you spend 90% of the time building the product, selling, etc. And so I don't know, 10% of the time for VCs that are really experts, I think that's a good amount in my case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So my next question, while I don't see more hands raised, is how do you build your network right now at Series B? So are you thinking about Series C and what's next, and how are you adding people from the next level to your network?
I'm again 100% focused on the business now, kind of not even 10% with VCs, like 0. Also because now in our stage we are getting to break even in the next couple of years. So we want to get to that point that we don't need to fundraise, and another reason for me to be 100% focused on the business, right?
Got it. Thank you. I see one more question from Konstantin.
Antonio, it was very inspiring, the journey you described, and I just want to ask you a little bit to get more into details how you got those first B2B customers, because I'm coming from different experiences in the US. We had a team in the US very experienced in insurance industry, and they, I mean, it's now established business, but kind of unicorn plus. But at the start of the journey, it was really hard to get to the room where the decision being made, because they need to be cleared through the vendor list, whitelisted before you're sort of okayed by the procurement department, just to get yourself into this room. So and it took us 2 or 3 years just to get into the list of recommended vendors for the specialized for the insurance industry, for us to start the conversation. And you said the two first clients were Check and DocuSign, which are not the mom and pop shops. I just wonder if it's just a network effect, or you have some magic trick up your sleeve you would like to share.
Yeah, definitely no magic tricks. I think it's super hard. It took us a few years as well to get it.
So a few years, yeah. So it's just not something that you just made by a flick of your finger, right?
No, and we launched. I think what helped was we ran pilots that were free, that helped them avoid the whole legal process, the whole legal review process. We just launched as simple as possible. Still, that took a whole year, right?
Right.
And then they tested. They had every employee using the product, and then they got comfortable to pay any amount of money while we were running the product. Then we started to discuss the legal review, etc. But every single client now, it still takes 1 year, 2 years, and many times it's you engage for 3 months, but then they say, well, not right now, let's connect next year, right? So then obviously things get but yeah, we have a very long sales cycle. I don't have a magic solution to shorten that. I think the learning for us was you need to have set your budget, assuming it's gonna take a lot of time to convert, instead of if you're assuming that you're gonna close in 3 months. Like SMBs, it's much faster depending on the product, right? But if it takes that amount of time, then you need to really manage your expenses so you don't burn too much money assuming they're gonna convert in 3 months, right? That would be my. We have another one.
Thank you.
If I might, another question to follow up.
Maybe just in a short, if you have a short question.
One, yeah.
One more
Yeah,
last
just so following up on this one, is it better to hire the team of experienced sales guys, or just go through the referrals, commission-based schemes at the start for the startups?
I would strongly recommend, depending on how early you are, like being very focused as a founder selling, because you're gonna learn a lot from the customers and you're gonna change the product so much.
But
If
I mean,
you're
if you want some help for the founders to if it's not enough just for founder to cover all the funnels, so what would be your advice? Should we like invest 6 months in the salaries of experienced sales guys, or just go through the commissions, referrals?
I would get advisors that are really experts in the space. They have all the networks there.
Right.
It is still founder led, and then after you hit like $1 million in revenues, then you're thinking about the first sales hire. That would be kind of roughly my.
You mean
based on-
MMR, or what do you mean by 1 million MMR?
$1 million in recurring revenues, AR, like
Monthly.
annual.
Okay. Anyway,
Per year.
it's achievable. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Konstantin and Antonio, for answering the question. I'm not sure I spelled your name correctly, like Jade?
It's Jade, yeah. Thank you.
Jade, yes.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for sharing your journey. It's super inspiring, truly. I have a question about more on the early stage. You were saying that you pivoted from an idea to another through interviews. How did you knew that the third or fourth idea, I don't remember, was a good product market fit?
Oh, great question. It's basically like after we interview 120 customers during the 10 weeks in the entrepreneurship class, that we clearly, fourth idea, we clearly started to hear, oh, do you have this product already? Do you have a company? Like, when can you come here to do this for our employees? When you're ready to start. So it's very different than just giving advice. And then when we heard from like a Fortune 50 company, and then a massive broker, and another like, I don't know, 5, 6 different tech companies that were relevant, the same excitement, then we thought, okay. And that's what we launched, and that's what got disrupted by the pandemic. So then we had to redo the whole process again, and another 17 new hypotheses that we started to test until like, oh, this new idea, people are excited about this. And then we tested, and we thought we were going to have 50 orders from like glasses with a huge discount, which is part of what we do, and we got 400 orders instead of like 50. So we're okay. So I think like little experimentations, but mostly like listening to your customers a lot.
Okay. And it's more like when they're telling you, when can I get it? Then like asking, oh, would you pay? And they would say like only yes. Like it's like if they really ask, can I get it now? That's when you know.
Yeah, that was a clear sign for us.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much, Antonio. Thank you, Sacha, for moderating. Antonio, we wish you all the best with your company and with your immigration next steps as well. We will be happy to see you in our in-person gatherings for sure. And thank you, everyone, for participating. See you in 3 weeks in our next Raisable Session. Please don't forget to subscribe. We will share all the links and all the information in our Substack. And Sacha or Antonio, if you want to say just a few last words, you're welcome.
Yeah, just thank you everyone for coming. Antonio, thank you for sharing candidly your experience, your path, your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And if anyone wants to connect, Sacha has my contacts there. Thanks for the the invitation. That was great. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good day.
you. Bye bye.